Billy Wood's like the best rapper that I would be scared to put niggas on to. Like, there's an album earlier this year called Scaring the Hoes. Billy Woods is in the scaring business. He in that abstract, off the wall lane, but in my opinion, he's the best in this lane of hip hop. Already in his career, he's in the top all time, top 50, borderline top 25 rappers of all time conversation, just off his ridiculous talent and his unmatched consistency. Like, this dude is prolific, and I don't think he has a miss in his entire discography. Lyrically, he's a master. I think rappers are poets in general, but he takes that to a whole nother level. He's one of the cases where the art can far exceed what the art describes. He's at that point where he can take any story or any theme, and the way he's able to word things, describe things, create these images, he can make anything both enjoyable and thought-provoking. Then he has this really unique delivery that, one, just sounds good, and two, he's able to exude any kind of emotion that's called for in the song. He's teaming up with a freaking collaborator in Kenny Segal. Segal's the producer behind my favorite Billy Woods project at this point, Hiding Places. He works almost exclusively with abstract rappers, which is perfect for him because he's able to create a great chemistry and, more importantly, create this canvas for an abstract rapper to paint that portrait over. I got super high expectations for this one. Let's get to it.
Aftermarket speakers in the saddle, beater, but they can't catch him. Binoculars to their peepers, wide tap.
The rattling of the bass in this beat feel like it play off the aftermarket speakers in the beater line.
Bad style, got one eye on them guys, the other on a crumbling mansion. If it's gonna get gentrified, I'm not trying to leave it empty-handed. Blue-eyed White Walkers in King's Landing. The way I'm running should be kissing.
I like that line a lot. He's starting this song describing the hood in Bed-Stuy where he grew up. Then he started talking about gentrification, the blue-eyed White Walkers, the White Walkers on Game of Thrones. He's calling Bed-Stuy King's Landing, and White Walkers, white people gentrifying Brooklyn.
I'm walking in the streets cause the rats is madness. Veneers on the teeth like nigga, we made it. Reek the gas, I'm a carburetor. Every time things going good.
Reeking gas, I'm a carburetor, gas, weed. I like that line too.
Laugh, have to remember God's a hater. Crocodile tears for 10 years plus, don't do me no favors.
Yeah, then that Crocodile's Tears line, that's a reference to his song on History Will Absolve Me.
Dinner party with the neighbors, their apartments renovated. Skate wing, brown butter and capers, Sprigvis lies. I whispered in the host's ear all night. I hear they found him in the morning, hoes run from the exhaust pipe.
God dang, this how you do a lot with a little. For one, I like this beat. Simple drum pattern, but they intentionally use that super retro sounding drum machine. Then I like those woozy keys that came in. Then the beat had this modulation where it sounded like they took the drums and put them in reverse, but it broke up the two different images that Billy Woods painted in this song. The first one describing ungentrified Bed-Stuy, then the second one after the gentrification. I love the imagery on both parts, but then the story, once he got in that second part where he was talking about going to the dinner party, presumably with the white neighbors. Then that last scene where he's talking about the hoes in the exhaust pipe, sound like he was describing a suicide scene. So feels to me he's having this undertone of this white guy's in this gentrified area. He's not actually happy despite the money that he has. Song's only a minute 20 seconds. It felt like 5 minutes worth of imagery. I rock with that one heavy. This is Soft Landing.
It's 211 on the daiquiris. It ruins the whole day when my baby mother mad at me. Spliff could probably jump your car battery. Birds of paradise in the
Spliff could jump your car battery. He had a really similar line on the last song talking about his gas can start the carburetor. That's another gas car scheme. That's sick.
A single death is a tragedy, but eggs make omelets. Statistics, how he look at war casualties. Killing is one thing, what sticks is how casually. Nonchalant, 5 in the morning, what I grew up on. God bless.
2 songs in, he's doing a lot of describing the area that he grew up in his childhood. This time focused on the street violence that he witnessed. I like that egg omelet line. He's playing that saying death of one is a tragedy, death of a bunch of people is a statistic. But he called the death of one person an egg, death of a bunch of people an omelet. And then a couple of lines later, he was talking about 5 o'clock, this is what I grew up on. So saying this was breakfast, seeing killings was like eating breakfast.
My own warden, Sellian superintendent, flaunt, flagrant disassociation, dissonant cadence, free political dissidents from their cages, but leave them open, we got lists of names, pages and pages, when wanna waste the space, the previous.
Yo, he is destroying this A sound. He's had this alliteration for pretty much the whole verse.
This message is to inform you your service will be suspended for non-payment. Midnight ravers, head in the loud clouds, both feet on the fucking pavement.
Head in the loud clouds, feet on the pavement. Sound like these were just stream of consciousness thoughts he was thinking about while getting high. Mostly centered around, one, that cycle of violence that he grew up in, and then 2, like the political climate that contributed to the conditions he grew up in.
My daily routine narrated by an Attenborough, over the instrumental to keep it thorough. My chain bang, glass ceilings, Joe Burrow. When the contract came, white man read while I sit brow furrowed.
See, this is some of what I'm talking about with how he describes things exceeds what he's actually describing. Like those 4 lines just describing him at the contract negotiation table, but the undertones of the line, chain banging on the glass ceiling. Like, you know, glass ceiling is like this imaginary top level that you can't exceed, but it's chains banging on it. And then that play into he said the line about listening to Keep It Thorough, which is the Mobb Deep song, and Prodigy talking about the chain hanging on the table.
It could be nuclear winter with an earthquake, the worst people who wriggle out the rubble. Maybe suicidal thoughts was the everyday struggle.
Oh, he one of these kind of smokers. He started thinking about the apocalypse when he high.
Before we take off, I call mom and say I love you. Complimentary beverages when we land, I text my ex and say,
Alright, that's another one. I like the production on this song. I especially like those smooth guitar riffs. Then those really lazy drums gave the song this methodical rhythm to it. The first 3/4 of the song, it was just Billy Woods narrating what's going on through his head as he's getting high. But then the end of the song brought everything full circle. So those last couple of lines, he started narrating about the takeoff on an airplane. So now the song title, Soft Landing, is like a double entendre for a soft landing for him coming down from a high and then soft landing from a plane. That's another really well put together song. Dope beat, great lyricism. This is Soundcheck.
I will not be in Soundcheck. I will not be in the green room if it's too lit. Could be at the local Greasy Spoon or Szechuan establishment. Courtyard by Marriott bathroom, blowing marijuana through the vents.
So it seems like with these opening lines in the last 2 songs, the setting for this album and the Maps theme is Billy Woods being on tour.
I reserve the right. Is it rap beef or is it on site? Talking out their teeth, don't even know what I look like. I think
Is it rap beef or is it on site? That's a little jab at how rappers be beefing but don't be doing nothing.
just cut the mic on and kill the lights. Nikon flash, my face is the mask. Developed a photograph and some. I'm from where bottles got smashed over your head in the spot. I'm tense. I'm smiling like I'm not.
Storytelling's on point, dog. It was a disjointed story because he went back and forth between getting ready to start a show, but it felt like he was switching back and forth between this other scene where he's sitting in like some kind of bar and there's tension and it's maybe somebody who don't rock with him.
I will not be a Soundcheck, buddy, I'm hemping. Me and the crew in this 5-seater we rent. Make sure the mic's right like Phil Jackson in 9-6. Show up the doors, grab a couple chords, then mic dip.
We definitely heard Michael Jordan for this, but that was a good one.
My DJ scratched the records like lice in it. We see some bets, I'm in the telly sock with hot rice in it. Lauren Hill, fuck your curfew, come and chill. JLA, talk the whole set, kill it still.
I don't know exactly what he referencing with that J Electronica line, but it don't surprise me if he does talk his whole set. That Lauryn Hill line funny. I don't know what it is, but I guess the better you are, the least likely you are to show it to your own shows.
Then after my set, you might as well go ahead shut it down. Cause ain't nobody else gonna burn it down like I burn it down.
Man, these first 3 songs about as strong as you can open up an album. Another sick beat from Kitty Segal to me. I like the bass the most on this song, but the drum sounded good too. And there was a lot of texture to this beat. I think my favorite element outside of that bass is probably the keys that came in and out sporadically. 2 dope verses here. I think both are good, but I do prefer Billy Woods over Quelle Chris's. They both had this imagery of them getting ready for a show. Excellent storytelling, but what separated Billy Woods' verse to me was he added this secondary layer of him flashing back and forth between him getting ready for the show and him being there, whatever bar and whatever beef or tension that was in the air. That they're really developing this like weed theme too, because weed's been a prevalent theme throughout these first 3 songs. Right on cue, the next song is Rapper Weed.
The strange name was just a string of numbers, blockchain, throw it on the pile with the others.
That string was just a string of numbers. That gotta be some new legalized gentrified weed type stuff.
Delivery fee is oof. My guy won't lie, them shits through the roof. Aromatherapy in the stool, lavender diffuse in the booth.
Aromatherapy, talking about the weed smoke.
Nike store on Fairfax don't even sell shoes. Made hash when the Gorilla Glue didn't move. Celebrity pre-rolls in a monogram tube. Corked. Crushed velvet in the box, embossed, had to find.
That's a double entendre because Gorilla Glue won't move when you like glue something together, but Gorilla Glue is also a strain of weed. And then that next line was the celebrity pre-rolls on monogram tubes. Like Jay-Z's weed is called Monogram. That's hard.
Jesus in a corkscrew. After all that, of course, the shit garbage. Of course.
That's hilarious.
Colorful packaging, Pac-Man, fly like gold on Africans. Cover my tracks with acronyms. If the track slaps in the back, you can almost hear the black cackling.
Yo, this
When it's
alliteration
my time,
is
no
crazy.
need to pass the hat. Just throw me in with the fire
Back
good and
alliteration?
crackling.
He's talking about the fire crackling and it's crackling in this beat.
Colorful packaging, Pac-Man, fly like gold on Africans. Cover my tracks with acronyms.
I like gold on Africans is fire too.
The track slaps in the back, you can almost hear the black cackling.
Yo, the more this nigga said, the crazier this chorus become. For one, that alliteration is not regular, but then the individual lines, fly like gold on an African, then you can almost hear the blacks cackling. I think that's a entendre for Black and Mouse and like black people cackling when they get together. And then pass the hat, I think is a entendre for it becoming his turn in the cipher. I said cipher, I meant in a rotation. And then the fire crackling, talking about the fire in a blunt, but making an entendre for like actual fire crackling.
Whole entourage on the couch, buried in their phones. He said it's 6 G's an ounce. I played it off, waited the bag seeds in a pouch. Rappers bloated with gout, swords weeping, doubled over chest heaving from chasing clout. Still super chiefing, but it's hard to trust like your money.
That's sick. The chest heaving from chasing clout. He said niggas sick from clout chasing, but the imagery he's using is niggas chasing alcohol, chasing clout, chasing alcohol, and getting alcohol poisoning from it. That's sick.
House that always
Literally.
barely breaks even.
Oh, that might be my favorite song of the album. Gorgeous beat. Those drums sounded super crisp, and that was my favorite piano chord on this album so far. It sounded like the entire song might have been this double entendre. Of course, he had all that weed imagery, but the overarching theme was he was spending all this money on weed, and the weed wasn't good quality. And it sounded like this might have been an overall entendre for how good rappers are with their image, especially in that second verse, how good they are with their image, but how there's no substance to it. Paying all this for fancy packaging, but the weed is trash. Rappers having all the external marketing and they bars is trash. This is Blue Smoke. Them cymbal hits with a bass. Open mic type beat.
Over time, symbols eclipse the things they symbolize. I sympathize, but read the contract before you sign, son.
That symbols eclipse the things they symbolize line. That's basically how I feel about Billy Woods, where the way he raps and the way he describes things can completely overshadow what he's actually describing.
Don't let me catch you unsupervised. Pushing every button, just remember it's no rewind. Mind you, you never met a nice group of guys in mind.
Pushing every button, but you can't rewind. Like you push somebody, they might snap and you can't undo it.
So much tape hits, FBI agents narrowed their eyes, frustrated, asking to be reassigned. Been on this N-word for months. I think it's all just rhymes. I'm still peeking, and if it's just us speaking, these N-words is on the decline.
He just randomly switched the perspective of like an FBI agent listening in on what he's saying, and he's speaking in code. That's actually kind of a throwback to the last song in the chorus where we was talking about he's speaking acronyms so they can't understand what he's saying.
Thick smoke, I took the honeycomb out the hive. No disrespect to your mans and them, but I'll actually do it live. Learned the hard way, motherfuckers were running, shooting after we spent months trying to strategize.
Man, we only 5 songs in, but the rapping and production been so top notch. Completely different vibe on this instrumental than the other 4 songs. The production had this open mic, spoken word type vibe where it just had the cymbal hits and then that frantic bass guitar under it. Then halfway through, the other instruments creep in. Billy Woods had like a spoken word type delivery on this song too. Instead of having like one single narrative focus on this song, he kind of weaved back and forth between different topics. A lot of braggadocio on this track. Still played into the weed themes. He had a couple of clever lines too. The when it was mean, the weed nicer. That opening line was pretty thought-provoking. Also like that push every button line. Another song with the length of the song is pretty deceiving because it's just so much content packed into it. This is Bad Dreams Are Only Dreams. Can't go
Jet
wrong
lag,
with the
I can't
horns.
quite grab the new me. Old self dozing in an aisle seat. Emirates where I left them daydreams. Alarm clocks break spells. Crashed out. Search for my own black box in the hills. Scorched earth, scoured like cooked pots, mega whales. Strewn debris. King's ransoms, it ain't no rise, it's free. Half sleep, the halo, dead on my feet.
That's crazy. Bro, what a twisted song. That song is crazy. So this song puts him back into the plane, and it seems like this whole album is coming from the perspective of Billy Woods is in a plane, and these are some of the thoughts that he's getting, whether it's him just thinking on the plane, reminiscing on the plane. And then on this one, on the surface, it said he was dozing off in a sleep, and it seemed like it was a dream, but the dream was really him having an outer body experience. First was him like raising up above his body. He described that in really vivid detail, and then he described the plane crashing crashing, and then this twisted imagery of like fire, him searching for his own black box, you know, the black box that be in the plane, the only thing that survived a plane crash. He talked about himself having a halo. So it's a dream or a nightmare per se, but the way that he described it, ugh, that song is hard. Sick beat too. This is Babylon by Bus. I like that song title. I like these
Babylon by
reverb
Bus,
keys.
no tag-alongs, just a marathon trying to run it up. Lake Michigan, a frozen pond, black swan with the bubble butt. Opera glasses, clutch front, my ugly mug.
I don't know exactly what he's describing, but there's some wordplay there with the pond to the black swan to the ugly mug. I thought he was describing himself, except for he said a bubble butt in there too. But pond, swan, ugly, black swan.
Glistening water bug on clean counter. Plague mask gave the place and cursed me glower. He ran away, I gave chase, but gave up and sat on his gate.
Yo, what is going on? It seems like he's describing two different things, and I don't know where he's going to land. I thought he was in a plane looking out and seeing this like landscape of the Great Lakes and the water glistening, and here go a swan here. But then he started talking about a water bug on the counter, like a roach on the counter, and then chasing it and it's stopping somewhere. Hey, I'm just along for the ride.
Lamppost adorned with the missing. Listen, I'm not swimming in the Mars. Parachute
Yeah, see, now it sound like you're talking about a trap
glad
house.
I kissed him. I knew the time was borrowed.
Steps with the blends to celebrate the new wave. Hope a host ain't got
This
himself a
modulation
12
is
gauge. Not a
crazy.
caught a loop game.
Crazy.
Red herring's nest in the Bible Belt. Cash it with the carbine. Never can be too safe these days. When the fits
Now these niggas describing running down on someone. I like the back and forth. I never really got into shrapnel.
mouth dry on that south by road to Damascus. Better call Saul a cab, it's getting bad with traffic. Walk up on my night rider with
That's a great show, by the way.
Caught him lacking on 9/11. I locked down like V.I. Leonard. People don't want the truth, they want me to tell them grandma went to heaven. Rifle on the wall is an icebreaker. All the world's a stage, she came to me in full makeup. Anyone wanna be in my life, gotta sign separate waivers. Wires out the taser. Suspicious fire in the galley of the freighter. What I do can't be copied.
Yo, I don't really know what I just listened to, but I know I like it. The switches between different topics came just as fast as the switches between beats. Billy Woods started describing some kind of landscape, and then it seemed like he was describing like the hood. I guess it plays back into the title of it, Babylon by Bus. So maybe he was in a bus as he was seeing these different things. So first he saw the Great Lakes. Okay, it's coming together. Then he saw the lamppost. But then shrapnel comes in and they go back and forth. They're basically like running down on somebody. So I don't know if that's what Billy Woods is witnessing. And then his third verse comes in out of nowhere. He at first seemed like he was playing into what Shrapnel was rapping about when he said run down on him like 9/11. But then it seemed like he moved into this greater imagery. I don't know if it was some kind of critique on society in general. But the people don't want the truth. They want me to tell them their grandma made it to heaven. That line is just grimy. Then he said something about like the world came to him in makeup. I'm still putting it together as I speak, but Babylon in the Bible was an actual place, but it was representative of like the worst thing that could happen, everything that the children of Israel, the people in the Bible, stood against. It wasn't really Armageddon, but it felt like Armageddon for people who was going through it. So it's like this Babylon by Bus is him riding on this bus and it's getting worse and worse, and then it lands on like society as a whole deteriorating. At least that's what I gathered on one listen. Crazy song. Those two modulations were ridiculous, especially that second one where these heavy strings came in. That's a sick song. This is Year Zero. I like these sounds. The electronic.
I quit looking for solutions. Bought a pistol and learned how to use it. You can't fix stupid. Ape stood and walked into the future. March of progress and hunchback front the computer.
That's crazy. Like the evolution, you go from like hunched over to standing up straight, but then like the turn on is ends with somebody hunched in front of a computer again.
My taxes pay police brutality settlements.
That's a
Quicksand
fact.
every direction, so go ahead and step on in. Kickstand for the weapon, tumor hand reach from the past to guide events. The document is undead. Common sense says my ancestors was the worst of the men.
Ooh, that verse was sick. Just a scathing critique on society.
Check. Low vibration, moral high ground. You slipping that night like an old bitch nightgown. Ain't trying to hear about listen.
That's sick.
Danny Brown back like skinny white girls. Working out, about to get the money like girls. Pull up.
Hey, that was a Fire Doom reference with that girl line. But Danny Brown back like skinny white girls. The white girls be all back, they ain't got no butt. That's hilarious, dog.
Lip, nigga dead left. Sit up, push up, bicycle kick.
That's a fire. He took the curls line into a weightlifting scheme.
Nigga sliding on you, and it ain't cool running. No
Cool running. Hey, I don't get too many movie references with a bobsledding. Yeah.
got it for the low, like the day after Christmas. Niggas illiterate, can't read the room we in.
I like
So
that
get
line.
your cameras out, it's a movie then. What you thought that it wasn't? Niggas lying like your cousins, when you know his ass wasn't.
Niggas lying like you cousins. You know black people. Everybody cousins.
Broke like the ice cream machine. You niggas rubbish. I'ma drop the low.
Yo, I used to work at McDonald's in high school, and the crazy thing is, when you walk in, they give you like the rundown of what you're doing, and part of the rundown is they tell you what machine is down that day. It was like 2 times I walked into work, and it wasn't something broken.
You the type of nigga to get lipo. I'm the type of nigga that can't work on an iPhone. If I lose weight, I get caught in a drug zone.
That's hard. That's hard. That's a word you punch with. If I lose weight, I got caught in the drug zone. Like the police busted me and took my weight, my drugs.
I ain't worried about the hate. I just wonder where the love gone.
Man, that's sick. This is the first beat on the album that didn't have keys, and instead it had this electronic feel. The pace of the song had this apocalyptic vibe to it. It just felt like everything was deteriorating. That really played into what Billy Woods was rapping about with his verse, where he was just describing everything wrong with modern day society. Active shootings, police brutality, the whole nine. And then Danny Brown's verse had absolutely nothing to do with the topics that Billy Woods was rapping about, but it was easily my favorite guest feature up to this point, which is saying a lot because the feature's been on point. One hilarious one-liner after the other. Danny Woods has one of the better flows in rap. He could have easily got into some double time, but he slowed down his flow, focused on the charisma and his delivery. I think he had a sick verse. That was a sick song. This is Hangman. His bass is dirty. I like the snare too.
Surrounded by thuggers, chasing dragons on aluminum sheets. It's flying carpets out this motherfucker. I don't sleep, I hover outside myself, watching my body survive. My shell mechanic.
That plays back into the, what song was that? The Bad Dream song, where on the surface it was like him going to sleep, but it was really him having an out-of-body experience.
Paper and pencil, I wrote the verse like Hangman. No need to ask who sent you, it's always just a question of when. An ill wind in the trees, saplings bend.
Paper and pencil, I wrote the verse like Hangman, like slowly getting closer and closer to his death.
I'ma keep it real with you, it's the things you can't undo. The past, the black Rubik's Cube, time lapse running in place like old cartoons. I'm old, I go in the booth like cocoons. Rappers protege.
I go in the booth like a cocoon, that's tough.
Big drift out of orbit, rogue moons. I be the only one
destroying this old sound.
I crack a smile at what you say is the truth. I be dead serious, laughing in the stew. Dead ass gas, got him gasping at the fumes. Doja pack with the taxes, giving shrooms. Dead proof, the dead trap.
His delivery match with this gasp alliteration is crazy. I like the weed is giving shrooms line. Y'all know that little sassy phrase the girls be using, the it's giving, but it's giving shrooms. Like it's feeling like I'm starting to hallucinate a little bit.
Vroom, 80X Supermax, born again in a dead womb. Payback always inexact, but I be squinting over measuring spoons. Before seeking revenge, dig 2 graves, gonna need one for you.
That's tough. Payback, you could never get payback exactly right. It's always gonna be a cyclical cycle. But he gonna try to do it anyway, like squinting at the spoons, making sure it's just right. And then he's like condemning it as it comes out his mouth, saying the dig 2 graves.
That bird in the hand, squeezed dead.
I don't know what exactly he's referring to when he says bird in the hand, squeezed dead, but that's a vivid play on that bird in the hand better than 2 in the bush phrase. Man, more stream of conscious style rapping from Billy Woods here. I don't think there was a single narrative on this song. Man, the vibe of these last couple of songs got really dark. It seemed like the song started with this Middle Eastern imagery, but the second verse is what really stood out to me. If I'm reading into it right, it seems like he could have been playing back into the imagery he had on that song Soundcheck, where he was talking about this beef that he had with this other rapper, because he had a couple of lines about not being amused with what other rappers are saying and other rappers getting out of pocket it. I know he's had a Tupac line early in the album on one of those songs too, so it could be imagery about rap beef turning violent, especially with those last couple of lines about payback and digging two graves. The production's getting spookier and spookier too. This is baby steps. Hey, this nigga Kenny Segal pulled a bait and switch. The beats were definitely creative on the first half of the album, but they had some at least resemblance of mainstream appeal on them. The production on these last 3 tracks turned into chaos.
Your call.
That screeching sound in the background is crazy.
I actually took a $300 Uber to a show and sleep in the back like Future might as well be a Maybach. Showed up with nothing but
sleep in the back of the Uber like Future. What's the name of that album? I Never Liked You cover.
glowed up looking like she covered in gold dust. Must not have re-upped to Lex Bro. I don't check in, but if you feel a disturbance in the force, you already know.
It sound like he going back to talk about being on tour. His girl's getting nervous about something.
Front row at your live set just to determine if it's a hoax. My love language and obscure dialect pulled me aside, explained she was just doing a bit. I was like, oh.
Obscure dialect in my love language. He like them exotics.
My fuzz steaming, oxtail and lemongrass steak still bleeding. Cocktails and cake tears, it's always wedding season.
Come on, man. Billy Woods, no, y'all be eating that steak well done, you nasty niggas. I'd rather have my steak mooing still before I eat a well done steak.
Breasts out for the feeding, feeling vulgar, large areolas bite like I'm teething.
Bite like I'm teething. They're playing the baby steps because he's talking about having sex with a girl and her breastfeeding now, and he's playing that into imagery of like breastfeeding. That's a little weird saying it out loud, but it sounded cool when he said it.
Oi, oi, I'm on the quiet block after dark, banging all the noise. The Abyssinians pay no mind.
Yo, I don't know what it is, but I don't never know what Elucid be rapping about. Let's see if I have better luck on this one.
Beats bang melancholic, chanting eat a dick up till you hiccup. It's a formalin fight, I know I'm wildin'. Clouds get violent too, must every tree I plant bear fruit. Filth and fury rotten, grease cake for dummies. Salt to suck the toxin, true north shot.
Dog, this album is sick. What a dreary beat. I really love the rapping from Billy Woods. The concept of this album is really materializing. He's definitely on tour, and in between these different legs of the tour, he's like falling asleep and contemplating on the plane rides. On this song here, he's on one of the legs of his tour. It's his disjointed story. His girl's calling him. She's nervous about the tour. Just randomly thinking something happened with him, and part of it's because he don't check in with her. Then it like fast forward to him meeting this girl. Then it fast forward to him eating after the show and smoking after the show. Then it fast forward again to him having sex with the same girl that he met at the show. Elucid might as well be rapping in another language. I really have no idea what this nigga be talking about. I don't know what it is. I'm pretty good at catching stuff. Nigga verse felt like a potluck of lines. Like it was some religious imagery here, some apocalyptic imagery here, a girl hiccuping on the dick here. I don't know how all of it fit together, but at least it sounded good. Still don't know what this nigga was talking about. This is the Layover. God dang! The keys came back.
Your mind just ask, no need to hunt for clues. Phone demagnetized the key to the room. Magpies pluck jewels out my inside, I'm wondering too. Finally got it to where it lies is the truth, and the truth is a ruse.
It seems like this verse right here is a continuation of the last song, where the song started with his girl checking in on him and she just having this bad feeling and anxiety. And it turns out he out here smashing some other girl. Seems like he's getting into it with his girl on whether he was cheating or not, and he's like believing his lies now.
The block spin, the car doesn't move. Black death, rubberneck and pale faces, handkerchief soaked in perfume. Posthumous YouTube views, lying at the bottom of a well, looking up at the circle of blue.
The way that he does his storytelling reminds me a lot like Quentin Tarantino, where Quentin Tarantino will tell one succinct story, but he'll do it by switching back and forth between a lot of seemingly unrelated themes. The first started playing back into what I was talking about him cheating and getting into it with his girl, but then all of a sudden it just shifted to seems like him being dead, and now he's like shoveling himself in the grave. So that plays back into the multiple references about him having this out-of-body experience after the plane crashed.
The game was horseshoes, I brought hand grenades tied in the close shaves. Before history, I made fire in the cave. Midwifery, delivery, a ball of rage. Hide and go seek, some never find a hiding place. Some kids hid so well they never found a trace. It's too late, but they came all the same. Eyes begging for something for the pain.
Man, it's just rapid fire, one scene after the other. The way that he ended this was crazy. He had 2 references to 2 of his old albums, The History, and then he referenced Hiding Places. He said before History, which was his breakout album, he was making Fire in the Cave like going unnoticed, and then he was talking about other kids were making fire too for perfecting their craft, but they went unnoticed and never got noticed. And then it seemed like he was saying they turned into drug addicts, but whatever, that's some sick imagery.
Face, walking with the Panther, going back to Cali, Deion Sanders, and I'm going back the other way.
Man, I'm just in awe. I mean, I love the chemistry between Segal and Billy Woods, but this exceeded my expectations. Just the versatility in the productions, the way that it creates a vibe and overall aesthetic of whatever Billy Woods is rapping about, and the storytelling from Billy Woods. Ridiculous, dog. But yeah, sick keys on the instrumental. Billy Woods is carrying on this being on tour theme. And then in between each show, it really emphasized this stream of thought that's happening inside his head. This time kind of reminiscing on If He Never Made It. Let's get into FaceTime.
Something fell off before I even left. So when I saw the missed calls, I knew it was next. Didn't have to open the text. Stupid prizes, couples therapy on Zoom. It's a train wreck. My evil eye ward off Hex though.
These last 3 songs, he's focused on his girl hitting him up while he's on tour. Now he's talking about having couples therapy over the Zoom.
I'm trying to live in the moment like death row. The sun set in the desert.
Trying to live in the moment like death row. You trying to wait on that governor call, say you can live, and I'm trying to be in the moment, be present.
I sip Mexico's best slow. Mezcal Negroni, sitting atop the corral, smoking, watching unbroken wild ponies run wild at sundown.
The frantic way in which he's been switching from topic to topic, I feel like it highlights how frantic it might feel on tour, where you go from one second you arguing with your girl, next second you hooking up with some fan, which I didn't even know he had female fans at his shows. I guess all the hoes ain't scared, and then it's back on the plane.
Lonely big tree like a sundial.
Big tree like a sundial, that's hard.
Window, I sit at the desk. It's a party outside. Some have, some overdressed. They was going off during Playboy Cardi set. Now they in the halls partying, checking their phones. Bass shake the walls. I'm smoking alone in a car.
Yo, that's crazy. So this was a lead single, and when this song originally released, I already loved it. Then by the time the second single, Soft Landing, dropped, I could tell that this album was going to be about being on tour. But now hearing this song in the context of the whole album, it just takes on an even bigger meaning. When you put it in context of the cheating that happened in the first 2 songs, him intentionally missing calls from her in the song before, then being pulled by 2 different things. One, trying to prepare a relationship while also having the responsibilities of performing, and then 2, when he's supposed to be enjoying this after party, seems like he was at this festival. He's sitting here thinking about her, which you could pick up on just as a single, but now that you get the full story, it hits even harder. Gorgeous beat, man. The horns and then the sax that crept in, then the saxophone solo. I like the simple boom bap sound and drums, and then even those shimmery keys that just accented the beat sounded good. These niggas ain't missed yet. This is Agriculture. Hey man, hearing these keys and how they sound, I now understand how niggas was losing their mind listening to Beethoven and Mozart back in the day. I like how off-kilter this is.
Lit the lamp boil before the sun rise. Before sparrow cry from thistle, the kettle boil before it whistle, the sky bleed purple. The night fight before it die. Squatting in the soil with the fistful, but my hands been dirty since before I could grasp time. Tomatoes cropping sideways. Stooped in the coop gathering eggs. Traded some to the neighbor for fresh bread. I say I'm at peace, but it's still that same dread.
I could be reaching, but Pete, earlier, I think it was the first song of the album, he compared killing to eggs. Now it seemed like he's reminiscing to before he got famous and he was like in the streets and he's describing plotting on some dudes. So he said he was in the coop counting eggs, traded some for bread or fresh bread or something like that. Coop could be double entendre for him sitting in Coop the car. Eggs would be counting bullets and then traded some for bread, like plotting on dudes, running up on dudes for money.
It's a funny feeling like knowing your enemies is in the feds. It's hard to live when before you was dead. Cup bitter at the bottom, I had to learn to toss the dregs.
Yeah, super smooth piano driven beat. And the narrative of the whole album seems like he's in between tours again, probably on a plane, and now he's reminiscing of before he got famous. Like the title of the song suggests, he had a lot of references to agriculture, getting his hands dirty, eggs, coops, chicken, bread. I think a lot of those were double entendre for him, like doing dirt. It might not have been killing, but like robbing. And I explained what I thought was the double entendre. Another thought-provoking song, mellow vibe to it. This album's amazing so far. This is Houdini. Yo, this kick is so trippy. He's back to, I think, that same drum machine that he used on the first song. And then he's compressing the kick and the hi-hat, giving it this weird, trippy, almost glitchy sound. And then to contrast that with the really smooth guitar.
I fell out, wasn't even tired. That's why I don't even really mess with OG, but this one tastes like fresh papaya. If the spot got a grill, you know I'm working the fire. Any beef today, a good day for a ceasefire. Or if not, creep, shoot to kill, hit or miss, get a good night's sleep, cause now it's gonna be on for real. I'm at a
this is sick. He could still be reminiscing, but he could be on tour right now.
in the Midwest with a pocket full of small bills, folded like tacos. Barato, El Chapo, and
I actually think he's talking about both simultaneous. Seems like he's describing like a down period on tour and a down period in like beef at the same time. Then of course he's going back to this weed theme that's been prevalent through the whole album.
I was high all day, I escaped. I was high all day, I escaped.
The simplest chorus on the album. He don't need to say much more than that.
Pit stop turned into the whole nine. Honestly, we wasn't looking at the time. Where I'm from, you don't see fireflies. Smell burning in the air, wildfires, backlight in the sky. You forest filled with fear, couldn't see it coming, but I could hear something lumbering near. Woke up sudden in armchair, cousin like, yo, you good to drive?
Yo, that song's dope. It's like in this narrative of his mind being frantic and dealing with his girl, dealing with tour, having these bad thoughts popping up about his past. This is like the first song where he finally feels at peace. And then the chorus saying, I was high all day, I escaped. Like he finally got away from all the anxiety. I love both verses, but I really love that second verse. Sound like he was describing this road trip that he went on with his homie. You know, I'll probably just be reading into it too deep, but I kind of got the feeling that he didn't actually go anywhere. All this is just an allegory or like a metaphor for him escaping to the trees, because it was super heavy like tree and forest imagery throughout that verse. And then the backdrop to it all was one of the most chill, soothing beats on the whole project so far. This is Waiting Around.
100 hours of balsam and cedar away, who follow the leader, who ain't just follow procedure. I'm saying
this rhyme scheme is insane, dog. This is a 5-syllable rhyme scheme, but he's having like only 1 or 2 syllables in between it that doesn't rhyme. That's crazy.
ultimately my value became the sum of these demos. They like my sons and my daughters, even the ones that were lemons, even the hundreds of sketches that ushered nothing but messes. When you was asking about transfers of another dimension, if I close my eyes and think I'm reconstructing an essence that isn't functional at present, I can't fuck with the premise. It's like
safe full of euros, I miss having nothing to lose. 22 wanted Amsterdam, 2200 in my shoes. Jay-Z in the disc, man, 2 grams in the wood, toss it in the canal if it starts your canoe.
He said 22-2, Jay-Z, talking about how much money he had on him, and then Jay-Z in the disc, man. I like that line.
The ball run, now it's barely a splash in the hotel pool. The night's young, I sit in the corner and watch him move, spinning like vinyl, jumping out the pool. Grassy gin winning over sweet moon. She had perfect teeth, purple haze had your boy like come home with me. She kissed my cheek, diplomacy. I walk cobblestone.
Hey, that's fire. He had a diplomat scheme, the diplomacy, purple haze. And he had one more Dipset album. But that's dope. They kind of mirror the Jay-Z scheme that he had earlier.
Stone, old poems just out of reach. Congolese concierge fast to sleep. Big lonely sweet.
That's dope. I think with this album, doesn't sound like Billy Woods told the artist exactly what the album was going to be about. Because in my opinion, the guest verses don't fit neatly into the concepts of the album, but Billy Wood weaves them into there, if that makes sense. So like A$AP Rock's verse, he had a phenomenal verse, by the way. The lyricism, ridiculous. And then A$AP Rock has one of the craziest vocabs ever. But A$AP Rock's verse was him reminiscing on trying to blow up with rap and finally being able to get on tour. So I guess that does weave into the concept a little bit. Billy Wood's verse felt like the contrast between hoping one day he'd be on tour and then finally being on tour. This is one of the more luxurious legs of this tour. He's in Amsterdam, some nice hotel, and he's just waiting around for his plane to leave. Ends up meeting some girl and misses his plane flight. The beat was good, but I think there's been some more out-of-the-box, unique beats, especially on this second half of the album. But it was a smooth instrumental. It had a lot of texture to it. This is NYC Tapwater.
You lack the minerals and vitamins. One sip of New York City tap water, I'm back dialed in. Last car on the last train, we piled in. Pack lasted 3 days, azithromycin. I miss this place till I'm back. Long face to match. My cats are strays, but the rats too big to catch.
That "Rats Too Big to Catch" line, that plays back into on the very first song. He was rapping about rats being in New York as he was doing all this NYC imagery. Now seeing like his tours back in NYC and he's rapping more NYC imagery. On the first song, it was kind of like he was painting this ugly depiction of NYC. And then on this song, he's kind of describing similar stuff, but he has a more loving perspective on it because he's been away from it so long.
Since I've been gone, it's a new panhandle outside the store. Inside, young boy going through every bag of grabber like it's raw silk cloth. Jet lag, I slip in the bar at last call. Crabs in a bucket, how the fuck I escaped them claws. Survivor's guilt with the side of buyer's remorse.
So he is talking about him coming back from tour, but it's also this bigger picture of rap got him outside of the area that he grew up in, and now he's coming back to that area and he's not quite recognizing it, and he's seeing people who didn't make it out.
Sometimes I don't tell anyone I'm back around. Just lay low, crack a fresh pound.
Be like
the cat
that.
missed me the most, purring loud on my lap. I see new people going up and down the stairs. New buildings just appear. I might have seen Don Cheadle, cookies and runs everywhere. But what I wouldn't give for a piece of that 08 sour diesel. That popcorn, green on green on green.
I talked about this song is him arriving back in New York and also is a symbol of him looking back and his progression from when he grew up in New York. One more thing to know though is how this song also mirrors the first song. In that first song, he talked about how this area is going to get gentrified. And then on this second verse, he was describing the results of that gentrification. Dope song. It seems like the concept is really coming to a close. Let's close it out with As the Crow Flies.
Everybody cooking, I'm just cleaning up my kitchen. Empty in the fridge, bleaching counters, sweeping corners. I be in my drawers, I line my whiskey sour ice with a dish, with a snap. By the time I get to Arizona, I didn't come with instruction. In a season of revealing, burning everything that doesn't serve.
This absolutely has to be a reference to injury reserves by the time I get to Phoenix. With this, by the time I get to Arizona line.
I'm in the park with the baby on the swings when it hits me crazy. Anything at all could happen to him. Tear-streaked apologies, bald fist, it's a trip. This is something we did. I kiss her on the lips. I watch him grow, wondering how long I got to live.
God dang. Yeah, I had no idea how this album was going to end because it felt like NYC Tapwater was the perfect conclusion. But hearing this has to be the most logical conclusion to this album. Billy Woods was definitely fast forwarding to the future and it felt like Elusa was doing that too. Because I don't think he's from Arizona, but it seems like this was him rapping about him retiring and getting a house in Arizona and describing that scene there. And then Billy Woods had probably his most straightforward narrative. Him at the playground with his kid and him kissing his wife on the lips. So it fast forwards, but it's a fitting conclusion. Him finally working out the issues with his girl that the tour caused and them having a kid and being happy. But of course, I had to have that one little tinge of sadness by saying, wondering how long I'm finna be here. Flawless end to what was a phenomenal album. Man, early in the year, I thought that Sky Zoo came out with an album that was going to be hard to top, and then JPEG Mafia had an album that I didn't think was going to get topped. This is right up there with both of those. Even off one listen of an extremely dense album, this is an album of the year contender. For one, the overall concept of the album of Billy Woods having these deep dives into his psyche within the scope of him being on tour, within the narrative of him being on tour, the frantic, disjointed nature in which he would go from existential gloom to being on a different leg of the tour, that like dream out-of-body experience that he had midway through the album was crazy. And then the bow that he tied on it with him finally arriving back in the NYC and seeing how things changed from the scene that he painted in the first song to the scene that he's living at present day. Then even fast forwarding into the future with that song about his kid. Then the elite lyricism from Woods. The storytelling on each individual song was amazing. He's so lyrically dense that I didn't even get into the syllable manipulation. I didn't point out all the alliteration that he had on pretty much every single song. Excellent wordplay through, and then of course he had his signature delivery. Kenny Segal was perfect on this album. I mean, I thought Waiting Around was probably my least favorite beat. That beat was really good. But just what I come to expect from him, he had the perfect backdrop to each song. And then I like how he fell back on certain instruments more than most. Most of the songs had keys, and then he had this really distinct drum machine that he used for a couple of the songs. You can tell they put just as much thought into the instrumentals as they did into the lyricism. Then to top things off, I think the guest features were amazing. My favorite guest feature had to be that Danny Brown verse. Had absolutely nothing to do with the concept of the album, but just pure charisma, some hilarious bars, great wordplay. But then A$AP Rock, another absolute legend when it comes to abstract rap, did what he does best. Elucid and Quelle Chris were pretty good in their respective verses. And then Shrapnel, who I'm least familiar with out of all these features, fire back and forth between them. I think it goes without saying that this is an album that you're gonna have to come to and really sit with for a while in order to dissect all the layers. But even on its surface, this thing is amazing.